Crisis mental health calls are the most difficult and most dangerous calls both for law enforcement and for the community. Hi everyone, welcome to today's bonus badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host as always, John Correa. With me again, my co-host, Mike Williver.
Today's video comes to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
You need a shot timer because that which gets measured gets worked on. The Range Tech Timer is the official timer of Active Self-Protection because it is versatile, reliable, feature-rich, and very economical. Check out all it can do at the link below. Albuquerque PD have responded here. The man in the red jacket has expressed that he's worried that he might hurt his parents. He lives with his parents. He is schizophrenic. He's off his medication. His parents have called 911 because he made that statement. So Albuquerque PD shows up, talks to the guy, tells him, he says he wants to go down to the hospital and get looked at, but he doesn't really want to get in the back of the car with cuffs on. So there's a bunch of back and forth about that. You can go watch the original. There's like 20 minutes of it. Then he goes back into the house and then the crisis comes. Let's listen to the badge cam.
MC2, go ahead and code for me from this call and I'll head that way. Is there any unit that can clear up to 82 Edward 431? MCT2, code for me from this call and I'll go that way.
We're here?
Yeah.
Just go ahead and make your code, please.
Max!
Oh.
I need another unit to clear. Adam 434, I'm going to preempt you if you can start up.
Max! No. Let him open it. Did you see anything?
Yeah, he has a knife in his hand and he's jabbing at his neck.
Okay. No. Okay.
I'm gonna suffer a lot if I don't kill myself. Will you please
Okay.
kill me, sir? Kill me.
Did you really? Did you really?
Okay.
Oh, why did you do that?
Shots fired.
What?
Right here, back here.
Excuse me.
And, ma'am,
Unit 410-3.
right here.
Everyone back out, please. Back out. Back up, please.
No, this is my son.
Let's go ahead and
Just go to heading down 4355 started.
reference one.
Reference 1 male, approximately 26 years of age, unconscious, unknown of breathing.
Take a step back. It's
Yeah.
okay. Take a step back.
10-4.
In the end on this one, the man ended up shot once in the leg and once in the head. He did live through that, but through many surgeries, he's still paralyzed on one side of his body. The internal investigation said that the officer was justified to use force in the moment to defend himself, but did find both officers were negligent in the things that led up to this and in the contributing factors that caused this. And so they were both given a written letter of reprimand, were suspended for 8 hours, and told to undergo some remedial training. This one's a really bad outcome. We have some lessons to learn.
A negative outcome for sure. And Mike, this is why we're telling the stories of real life self-defense on the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is based almost primarily around people that have been in self-defense encounters, people that have trained, carried a firearm, and we're going to cover the aftermath and just the whole thing. It's a long form, which I think is great to get people's stories out.
So harass him to get some episodes posted, would you?
I'm on it.
Mike, I can tell you from firsthand family experience that the mental health system in America is broken, and it's not these officers' fault that it's broken. I think they showed up and were very compassionate to this guy and did their very best. But when we ask police to go to these kinds of situations, and we do because there might be violence, it's literally some of the worst calls they have.
Every agency I've ever worked with as a Fed, every local, county, state agency has something usually called a PERT team, Psychological Emergency Response Team. And it's an officer or a deputy, and there is a psychological professional. Usually it's a psych nurse who can ride along with them, and they get dispatched to calls like this so that they can do a real eval. You know, the nurse could be talking to this guy and have a really good understanding of what he or she's talking about versus an officer who, let's face it, just doesn't get nearly enough training in this sort of thing.
But of course, that team might have been dispatched somewhere else in that moment, and this is the second or third or fifth or 10th call. And so I really think as a country, we really need to think about our mental health care system, and that's affected me personally many times. And so I really think that this is something we need to work on. Now,
letting the guy go back in the house. I think this is a pretty significant problem.
Terrible idea. I mean, the minute he started to walk towards the house, should be, hey, man, hey, stay here with me, hang out with me. Let's not go back inside because you don't know what's inside or what's he planning on doing.
And of course, then the officer gets sucked all the way back here, and I get it. He's trying to find this guy because he didn't want him to go back in the house, and of course, he doesn't want him to do bad things. And now I think where things really start to go wrong here is he gets sucked into the back part of the house where he has no way to get out, and he gets kind of stuck there now because Dad is blocking his egress.
Yeah, I wish he would have had a partner with him at this point. If this guy's truly potentially having homicidal ideations, I don't want to be alone in the house with him. I'd prefer to have a partner. I don't want Mom and Dad milling around in there at that point. I mean, the original call was he wants to potentially hurt his parents, so I'm not sure what we're doing here.
So I think the biggest thing that I see here is a loss of control of the scene.
100%. That's exactly what happened. He needed to be directing people, not being a jerk, not being a bossy person, but just hey, can you wait outside for me? Make contact with this guy through the door, whatever, and it didn't happen.
And of course, he goes running off against, to go find this guy. His partner's outside somewhere. We don't know where she is. We don't know what they're doing. So again, the biggest thing here, and it's so easy to do, is with these kind of, emotionally disturbed person or mental health crisis, it can spiral out of control so fast. You've got to slow your roll and see, okay, wait a minute, let's back up and see what's going on.
Yeah, especially when Mom comes in here in a minute, I think we needed to slow the scene down significantly, and that also didn't happen.
So he knocks on the door. Love that. Okay, let's just make contact here again. Let's see if we can, again, use our crisis, our de-escalation stuff. But when Mom shows up, I love that the officer at least stops. Whoa, time out. I don't want you to open the door because when I open the door, I have used up all of my discretionary time. Now I'm going to have to act.
Well, she says to him, hey, he's making stabbing motions at his neck or whatever the case may be. Look, once that door comes open, you're out of options at that point. You're backed into a corner, and I really wish they wouldn't have opened the door to begin with, but Mom was very insistent. Look, if he's in there self-harming, that's unfortunate and that's terrible, but by forcing this situation, by forcing the door open, we've just now made things worse.
We made it a lot worse. And of course, the big part of that being worse is that the officer has allowed himself to get stuck in the house in a place that he has no way to back out. He has no way to buy himself any time, and that will, push that discretionary time to zero and force him to act. So this is when you've got to say, no, control the scene. Mom, stop, back away from the door, get out of the house. We're going to deal with this.
I understand why he takes the angle he does, in as much as he's going to see the door opening from the very beginning. He's not going to be standing on the handle or the doorknob side, but on the hinge side. But you got to recognize, folks, you're backed into a corner here. Once this door opens, you got a guy with a knife who apparently wants to kill people, and you got no exit unless you're going to jump through a window.
Yeah, and so bad spot all the way around. Now, a guy comes out, and of course he says, hey, I feel like I'm going to do terrible things if I don't die, and then asks the officer to kill him, and then shows him the knife and comes at him with the knife. Look at his face. This guy is not high emotion in this moment. He has absolutely decided that he wants to die in this moment.
I think it's critical. You've got to read body language better than this. And I never second guess. I'm second guessing. Look, this guy is not a threat to you right now. He's just not. Anyone can see that. He's got a knife in his hand. He wants to die today. I feel like a boot to the chest and knock him back, or something else other than going right to the gun. Plus, he's so close.
So does the officer have the right to defend himself? Yes. Was it the best thing to do? I don't think so. I think it was, again, I don't want to second guess, very tough spot to be in, but just, gosh, so much that could have been done. There were so many preclusion problems here ahead of time. So he takes the first shot, second shot, and really the reality is the first shot hit him in the leg, second shot hit him in the head, because he dropped so quickly. And so when I think that we get these problems of, was this okay? Was this justified? And again, an internal investigation says, in the moment, does he have the right to defend himself against an imposing deadly threat? He does. But that doesn't mean this isn't a terrible outcome based on all the things that he did before that put him in the spot that forced him to use deadly force.
I wish we could rewind and not let the kid go inside to begin with. That would have solved all of these problems. None of these other things would have happened. So keep an eye on someone you're dealing with. Don't let him out of your sight. Don't let him wander off.
Or if, okay, he got out of my sight. Mom, you're not opening that door. Everybody else out of the house, we're waiting for the nurse practitioner. We're waiting for the PERT. We're waiting for the crisis response team to show up because I'm not going to put anybody else at risk. This guy has said that he is homicidal to me earlier. So I'm just going to back up and wait. And then we're going to do the surround and call out thing. And because they pushed the action and pushed all that, it caused these things. Now, I'm going to say, Mike, at the very end, to me, the worst part of this is his follow-up actions. It wasn't even the shooting. The shooting, I go, gosh, that's terrible and I don't like it. But then like mom's gonna come in and now he's got mom and dad in this situation to giving care. He's not calling out. He called shots fired, but he's not getting any kind of care on the way. Who knows where his partner is? This to me is just egregiously wrong.
This is terrible. This is one of the hardest videos I've ever had to watch because of his complete and utter inaction at this point. He hasn't told anyone who shot, who did the shooting. He hasn't even stated his location inside the house, for that matter. He hasn't communicated with his partners. He goes to get the knife away. I guess that's a priority, but I mean, what are we doing? I don't understand any of this. He's just standing around like he's in shock. And if you, listen, you have to have had this conversation in your head before this stuff goes down. You have to know what is gonna happen. You've got to tell yourself, look, if this, then that. Otherwise, you need to find another job, dude.
And listen, I don't say that, we don't say that as a criticism of people, but some folks, I mean, it takes a certain mentality in order to do that job. And if you know you don't have it, if you go, man, I'm gonna get in this situation, and my guess is this officer's in this situation, and he goes, oh no, how did all this happen? I never meant to be here. I never wanted this to go down. And he's just in a state of mental shock. So you gotta control the scene beforehand to not put yourself in this kind of circumstance. If you, God forbid, get in that kind of circumstance, you have to stay emotionally present to get that person the help that they need. Again, this is going to change that guy's life forever. He did live through this. It's going to change this officer's life forever. Certainly mom and dad's life forever. I'm like, this is just a really bad outcome, and I hate to share this kind of stuff on the channel, but I feel like we need to.
I'll tell you one thing. After Columbine, before Columbine happened, we used to say, oh, the most important thing is you get home safe at the end of your shift. Yeah, no, that's not the most important thing. You're a peace officer. You're there to protect and serve people. Getting home at the end of your shift is great. Protecting other people is more important than that. So that means if someone's shooting in a school, you go in and you take care of it. That means if you have a clearly despondent, very sad-looking guy with a small knife on him, you got to consider other options other than going to the gun at that point.
Wow. Well, let's learn the lessons here. Terrible outcome.